So, hello everyone. I'm not sure if everybody's already joining. Our team says people are still joining, so we will probably give 2 or 3 minutes. But in the meantime, feel free to give in the chat if you can hear us. Just I don't know, plus sign or anything. Let us know from where you are joining. Is it Switzerland? Is it our neighbor country Germany, or where are you currently sitting at?
Hello, guys.
Yes.
Nice
And I
to
see a lot of Switzerland. Yeah, of course. Okay, Switzerland. Nice. What else do we have? We even have one person I saw just in New York, so that makes me feel like a global presenter right now.
All right, we have UK here as well. Nice to see you guys. Welcome to the webinar.
Yes. Okay. So I think we can start. Yeah, we can start. I think other people might still join. I hope they will still be able to catch up with how the webinar is going. But we don't want you guys to wait for too long. So we will jump right into it. And yeah, welcome now very officially you to our webinar From Data Chaos to Clarity, Master Data Integration with AI and Modern Tools. And yeah, we hope we can provide you with a lot of clarity how to embark on the data journey. And to do that, we provided you with these 2 experts, right? And Dima, I will give the stage first to you, and then I will introduce myself very shortly.
My pleasure. Thanks for the introduction, Dustin. So guys, nice to see you. My name is Dmytro. I'm CTO at Espro company. And for the last 10 years, everything I was doing was related to engineering and AI and machine learning. So we have in-house team in Espro that cares about all the data related and data science related and AI related projects. And I'm leading that effort. I was also ML lead at a company called Giphy. Maybe you know about this company, the largest provider of animated GIFs and animated short videos all over the world in various messengers, social platforms, etc., etc. I was also AI expert and eventually the CTO of one tech startup that received funding from Google. And I occasionally speak at conferences. I'm also mentoring some of local startups here. And yeah, so nice to meet you, and hopefully we'll have a great webinar today.
Yes, yeah, thanks, Dima. My name is Dustin. So as we see, I'm a business analyst, so I'm more from the business side. Coming originally from consulting, so have seen some experiences. Okay, how do business functions? What are the typical pain points? And really now taking this at Espro also into my job profile to translate kind of technology solutions to the corresponding business challenge and make sure that we find the right use cases, find the right IT strategy for you, and make basically the most out of IT. Right. And one of those things we will see today when we talk about in general data management, clients often start with topics like BI reporting, right? But one of the key enablers for that, right, is oftentimes actually data management, data integration, and that is kind of our topic for today. And we are going to approach this, or maybe one last word. I know this will be a session, a fast-paced session. However, if you have any questions or you maybe have really your personal use case in your organization, you see how to reach out to us either on LinkedIn or just via the email we have. That being said, how we approach today's session, we provided the following agenda. So first of all, we will talk briefly about the role of data integration in modern businesses. I already gave some insights what will be topics about that, but the main question here is basically, okay, why do we even need to talk about data integration? What is in there for me? What is in there for the business, right? Then shortly we'll talk about key challenges. Okay, what makes it so hard, right? And how we think we can overcome them, and what kind of solutions we see that we can implement it with our clients in order to also reap the potential benefits that lay in such a solution. The third part will be then exactly this market insight, seeing, okay, what kind of tools are available for that? How can we leverage those tools and really make them tailor-made available for your business, and kind of like also where's the market going? And then in the fourth chapter, we present real cases, right? So we don't only talk about the theory, we will actually present some of our cases that we've had in the past. And lastly, in the chapter 5 and 6, we will provide, first of all, recommendations. So what can you literally do tomorrow, right? Besides of scheduling a call, obviously, and practical steps for implementation. And of course, you will have the chance to ask some questions that we will hopefully be able to pick up. Maybe not all of the questions we are able to pick up today in this session, but we will afterwards reach out and share the answers to all our other questions via social media, basically. Yes, that being said, let's move to the first topic, the role of data integration in modern businesses and why it is so important. So what we see at the top left is basically that there is kind of this shift understanding data from an operational expense, right, that you just have to do in order to run your business and keep everything functioning, to now more becoming an asset. So data becomes an asset that we expect to give us some return, right? We have it in order to generate some return. And I think we see that lately with a lot of, let's call them more modern companies, right? They are really more or less only data companies nowadays. Let's say Meta, for instance, with Instagram or Facebook, where basically there is not so much a tangible product, but really it's about the data that is behind that, right? And all of these modern companies make it very well of tailoring recommendations, showing you your personalized landing page, and actually knowing a lot of times better what you want before you even know it by yourself, right? And we believe that a lot of companies can actually move to this more modern approach and more modern paradigm of data by following this transformative journey, which you also see on the right side, so this data strategy journey. And what you see here is that we basically have 4 phases. And the first phase is really the foundation phase. And that means we establish just the data governance, the standardization, the process around that, taxonomy for data and processes, and from a technical perspective, bring all of this data to a unified data view, right? And this unified data view then obviously has to be secured and access. So if we talk about compliance of data, that only people that are actually meant to see data, right, or meant to interact with data can actually access that. And why this is, and today's webinar basically is especially one part of this foundational prerequisite. So we can enable the foundational phase basically with data integration of bringing all of this data that currently sits in multiple systems across the organization with maybe even multiple locations where this data sits. We all bring it basically to one place, and then we can enable us to move to seeing data as an asset. After we're doing that, right, after the foundation phase of really bringing the data together, having this unified understanding or a unified data view with the corresponding rule sets and governance systems behind it, we kind of can move to the second phase, which is productization. In productization, we are able to now ship the data that we have now available and package it basically for the usage in exactly the right business team and the right business department, and make it consumable across the organization. Right now, how this often looks like is that, let's say the marketing team or has access to their marketing systems. The finance team has all of the access to the ERP system, and they know where the data lays, right? But it's not a very holistic approach and a holistic understanding. And if we move from this phase now to the third stage, which is monetization, that is where we now really generate some value out of those data points, right? So we are able to really use the data at the right place. That means, for instance, I can tailor my marketing budget way better now because I have the insights. It means I can potentially even sell the data for some companies that might be relevant, but it also allows you to really rethink our business model. And we believe that this is a development that we see with a lot of companies, not only this, let's call them data companies, so like Netflix, Meta, and so on, but we see it also where data is a key asset now, let's say for manufacturing companies, for car manufacturers, right? We see that more and more business models actually actually spin around data and making that available for the customers. And then the last stage is just the strategic application. So once you have the full control over your data and you really have this unified view on your data, navigating your organization through strategic questions becomes way more easy, because all of a sudden you are able to deploy advanced analytics or even AI, machine learning on top of those let's say data warehouses, for instance, right? And you're able to really derive, okay, where does, for instance, a revenue change come from, right? And the advanced analytics are able to do this really in-depth root cause analysis. Okay, if we like miss our revenue goals last year or last quarter, why was this the case, right? Which products were maybe functioning in the worst or under our expectations? Which branches that we have in the organization maybe didn't meet the goals? And while this is usually right now a task that a human can do, right? And like they have to dig and they have to like look into the data and do all sorts of analysis to finally come to an answer. More advanced models can actually find this root cause analysis way faster and find even patterns that humans might not even find. Yes, that being said, so this is basically just the whole spectrum of like data strategy. Now now we wanted to focus on data integration. Data integration as an enabler for like starting this data journey. We see this on the next slide, where we kind of like have an understanding of like what is actually data integration. And if we move at this like picture that we have on the right side, we see that we have multiple data sources organization. This is maybe your ERP system like SAP, your CRM system. You might have a system to manage your employees, right? You have like a bunch of systems, and all of those, or like most of them, might not talk to each other, right? And are kind of like isolated from each other. And basically what you can do with like bringing in the processing layer, you can like extract the data, transform it, and load it potentially in a data warehouse, and kind of like connect all of those data points you have across your organization into one common platform or one common data warehouse, to then make it accessible, for instance, with BI solutions, visualization tools like Power BI, ClickSense, Tableau, right? But once you have the data available at this one place, that is where you can basically generate the power.
And to establish the governance, rules for security, various policies for how to maintain the data there. So yeah, it's a super powerful instrument.
Yes, so it's basically end-to-end, right? It's end-to-end in terms of like it gets the data, it makes it possible to manage it, but it also allows you then to leverage it with other technology solutions, right?
Yeah, and it can be considered as a framework where you have multiple plugins and blocks that you might either inject or remove depending on a use case. You might consider more scalable solutions like big data, if you have a lot of data to be processed in batches, for instance, and we might use Apache Spark, for instance. Or if there is more streaming-like scenario, there might be other tools for certain use cases. So yeah.
So yeah, even if we use these data platforms where we will talk about in the future, right, in the next slides, yeah, there is obviously always some kind of business analysis that has to be done in order to really define what do you need for your organization, right? And I think one thing that we see right now a lot is the topic of AI, right, and the hype of AI. And this is basically one of the, I mean, of course you can like have single use cases, but that is ultimately a big enabler, because if you have the data at one place and you can access it with like multiple models, that is basically where you can really derive like real value for your organization.
And for sure, there are companies, and we've seen a lot of such cases when they try to build AI on top of, you know, either cloud files or some chaotic storage facilities that they have. But there are certain downsides with this process, just because the data acquisition from those storage means takes more time. There is a high risk of, missing out something in the data. You don't have this consolidated view that allows you to create data sets just straight away, right? And so there is a lot of manual operations that you need to do to get the representation of the data required for your model to train. or to build a report or do something else. That is why it's really prone to errors, and that is why the flow that Dustin showed in the previous slide is something that allows to build a reliable workflow. And that's probably the most important thing, because yeah, of course we want to be scalable and efficient in all our processes.
Yes, and I mean, now on the next slide, right, all of this sounds very easy, but what we see with most of our clients is actually that there are some key challenges, right, or the top challenges that we see when we talk about data integration, right? In theory, it sounds kind of easy, but yeah, one of the key problems that this data integration usually has is that, okay, we talk about large data volumes, right? And if we talk about large volumes, then it automatically means that we have complex consolidation, we have multiple sources, we try to map with each other. We also have requirements from a storage perspective, right? And from parallel processing, so potentially it takes also just time until the data is available. So getting the infrastructure right for that is something that we see clients struggle with, right? And that's where we usually then come in and help with like setting it up with like concrete requirements and expectations of what do we actually, what are the requirements regarding our data pipelines, for instance. And knowing that in advance helps you to like plan ahead of those, basically, right? Another problem, and that is probably something that everybody can relate to, is data quality, right? And data quality is something I think that all of us even face when we work with like small Excel files, right? Where all of a sudden the data is not in the format that we want. There might be like entries missing, and all of a sudden the average that I wanted to calculate doesn't make sense anymore, and I don't spot it, right? So data quality is, of course, like also a key challenge in the whole data integration topic, right? But usually the tools that we will see in a bit, they allow you to have like way more control over those, right? They allow you to really see your data, interact with it, like mostly or like a lot of times also with like user interfaces. So it's not that hidden data pipeline that you cannot access what is happening, this so-called black boxes, but you can actually manage it quite effectively. Another challenge for sure is also diverse formats, right? So it really depends. I mean, it's a simple problem. For instance, if you have like different dates, let's say out of the US or in Europe, right? These little things can actually be quite an integration challenge, right? But once you are aware about like your different data sources and where you want to go, what is the target state, you can rule them out basically one by one and make sure that all of these data formats you have align with each other in order to really be in the end, if you like consume the data, be like as accurate as possible. Then we see collection delays, so just the time delay that data sometimes takes, right? For instance, if you have like data that has to be processed before, it's very hard to like really establish this real-time data because there's so much processing power sometimes used that that can be a hard requirement. But then you maybe don't need to use that on each of your data pipeline, but only on specific ones, and therefore these data management tools allow you to also fine-tune your data pipelines based on the needs that you have. Then regarding compatibility issues, we've said it earlier a bit, right? So a lot of times you have like this various systems, and what you often hear is like they don't talk to each other. And they don't talk to each other because a lot of times it's very hard to establish those integrations between maybe even very outdated systems, right? And usually what like where we can help is actually bring solutions in that have like some kinds of standards how data can be moved from system A to system B. And lastly, we have security risk and data breaches, of course, like not having that under control, seeing what data breaches can do to companies, and their reputation is a huge risk. And using modern tools can for sure, right, paired with encryption and like constant monitoring of the data, mitigate such a big security risk that we maybe have even seen in the media.
Great points. And what we know from talking to our clients and working with various businesses across different domains is that these challenges are probably the most common for almost all the companies. And what companies usually try to do, they try to develop something by themselves and use the custom development approach here. by, taking some specific points of this pipeline and trying to implement some basic solution to address this thing. And usually it results even in longer terms, in larger budget allocated for those development efforts than you would spend if you take the pre-built solution or some well-established framework and apply that on top of your whole organization to manage the flow from the very start to the very end. And that is what we suggest to consider for every problem. Of course, to consider all the requirements, all the specific needs in terms of how fast it should be, what kind of data sources you have, what kind of other requirements are available. But then it could be adjusted, and various customizations can be added on top of that. That is why we do consider we do suggest to consider this approach where is a standard, and you then just adopt the solution for your use case.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. So sometimes we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? We can actually use a wheel that is and tailor it to our needs, basically, right? Now, besides of the changes, of course, if you are able to overcome them, there is like this bright side of benefits, right? And the key benefits you see on this slide. Ultimately, if you're able to do an effective data integration, we can boost productivity, because all of this like patching of the current data problems, let's say, like is compensated, and we have now the time to actually focus on what matters, and that is like the deep analysis, the connection to the business, right? And not only like preparing the data or making sure that the maintenance in the IT team is done the whole time, right? So we can really boost productivity, enable people to do way more value-adding work, how we can call it, right? And that might be time spent on analysis, but that also might be time just spending on client interactions, right? Instead of like getting the report correct, you don't have to spend the time on that anymore, and you free up the time for the real value-adding work that drives the business. Then regarding agility and innovation, I think the AI and machine learning hype is real, right? It's here. We see it with a lot of clients that now really start, and we really move beyond this initial hype that we as end consumers, I think, seen quite a lot with, especially with like ChatGPT deployment, right? We've seen, okay, all of a sudden everybody can use machine learning or large language models to their use. However, like organizations usually wait a bit, but now is the time where we see that organizations start to move. And one, as I already explained it earlier, one of the key prerequisites or enablers to make that move is actually having the data available and having the correct data available. That means you can really build holistic solutions. You don't have to, or the risk for hallucinations because your underlying data is actually wrong is a bit decreased, right? Or not a bit decreased, but drastically decreased. And this just allows kind of like a whole new spot of like AI use cases, or actually AI-driven business models, or supplements to your business model that you have right now.
Yeah, I wanted to add here, so since AI applications are always, in any case, data-driven, it's impossible to establish the observability of your application without considering the observability of your data. That is why, it's one whole unified pipeline, which starts with the data processing and management, and then it goes to the AI compute, inference, predictions, and stuff like that. So in order to control the whole process, you need to establish both data lineage, how the data is ingested, how it's stored, how it's managed, how it's propagated to AI workloads, and how from AI workloads it's passed to the client, and what is the engagement, what is the feedback of the client with respect to the prediction that they received. And that's what allows you to build this feedback loop, right, to enable your model to continually update and become better over time.
And I mean, the third point is quite interesting, because we first talked about AI decision making, kind of, right? But it also allows humans ultimately to do better decision making, right? If you have false data and you make strategic business decisions on that, that is obviously like quite costly and quite dangerous. And what we see is, for one part, is that you can improve your decision-making capabilities by having more data available, but you can also speed up your decision-making capabilities by allowing you to have the data available quite fastly, right? Without like moving through multiple systems step by step. And I think especially in the world right now, where like there are more geopolitical reasons to, or like geopolitical risk, right? Like the world from yesterday is kind of like has a problem to predict the world of today. That is where you need really fast decision making power, right? And I don't know, we've seen it, maybe one example of COVID, of course, where all of a sudden the whole supply chain can be disrupted. And if then the chief purchasing officer says, okay, what other like suppliers do we have that can supply those specific components? It takes some time to actually answer those kind of questions, right? But what you do if you have like the data integrated at one place, you are able to answer those drastic or like very important questions way faster and make the decisions where speed is actually tremendously important.
For sure. And another aspect here is that it's not about digitalization only, it's also about the processes in your organization. Because if there are departments that still, do manual population of spreadsheets that are located on their local machines, there is no tool that will help to make this organization top-notch, innovative, AI-driven agency. That is why before the actual development and integration of this process, where the data is automatically fed into the data warehouse, then it goes to all your workflows, AI, BI, reporting, analytics, and stuff like that, you really need to reconsider the way you work with data. And so it's a lot of cultural and strategic work that needs to be done on the level of organization before that. So of course it's tough, but we definitely know how to do that, and helped numerous clients before with that.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? Like our current talk is like largely focused also on the technology perspective, but there is for sure also cultural governance, compliance aspects or process aspects that you have to look into, right? So ultimately, it's like a very comprehensive target operating model, and technology is one part of it. However, technology allows you to really start this journey, right? Because if you don't have that in place, then all of the other endeavors, might not be sufficient enough, right? If we talk about data quality, I mean, that's what we already discussed quite a lot. And exactly like an example that you mentioned right now, a lot of times right now, the data quality is made on the spreadsheet, right? So people enrich the data manually, they have to clean the data, have to do all sorts of like manual transformation steps that have to happen all of the time again and again, which might work, but also has the risk of failure, obviously, right? And the risk of failure of like maybe missing a row here, maybe missing a Excel formula there, right? And having like wrong data ultimately. And the platforms that we also show in a bit, they actually allow you to have like real control, real management over those kind of like, let's say, data cleansing and transformation processes.
For sure. And what also can be achieved with using data integration tools is that you can refine the responsibilities for every data source and for the management of the data warehouse. So what we currently see as an issue is the thing called data silos, which is the problem when various data sources might have the data that have an overlap. There are inconsistencies in terms of how one team manages their database, and another might do that in a completely different way. They cannot agree on the common schema, how to store either the same or similar entities. And what you can do with this like unified pipeline is that for each step in this pipeline, you will have the responsible party. For this, you will be able to establish a governance framework with some specific processes to follow. And this will also ensure that for every question, for every issue that arises with the processing, with the data quality, there will be a contact person or a team to which you can reach out and ask to do something with that. So it's also something to improve the overall picture of the data management in an organization as well.
Yes. One other part is that cost efficiency. So managing all of these, like managing the current state of the organization might be very costly. Once from the infrastructure perspective, right? Maintaining multiple integrations between multiple systems, but also from just like the workload that requires, right? And having like one unified or consolidated data system for that enables you to have like this one single point of entry for your team, or especially your IT team, to actually manage that way more effectively. And I think lastly is the whole regulatory compliance topics. I think we see right now that data protection laws are growing, right? It's hard even to keep track of everything that is out there, coming with like GDPR or specific standards for healthcare data in the US, or even like if we talk about banking clients, but talking about transactional data and all of the regulatory compliance that you have to fulfill in order to be of course compliant, right? Is enabled like oftentimes way easier if you have data platforms that allow you to like see the data, to manage the data, and to make sure it is compliant.
And many of those platforms are actually either SOC 2 compliant or ISO 27000 compliant or any other standards that might be related to your particular domain. That is why it's much more easier to just take the solution that is already compliant and has all the regulations in place than to develop it from scratch. Like get advices always from some domain subject expert to learn how to do that stuff. It's just easier to use the best from this world.
Okay, so what we've seen now is kind of like in the past few slides is, okay, what is the need, right? What are challenges, so what makes it so hard, but what are actually then the benefits if you are able to do the data integration challenge in a sophisticated way. And I think on the next slide now that I will pass to you, Dima, we actually see how the market responds to that, right? What kind of solutions are there, and that is actually let's say, a growing business around those platforms, which actually like underlines the point that we try to make, right? That the demand and the usage is growing in organizations.
For sure. So let's see the current numbers. Based on the projection that we've seen in multiple reports, currently the valuation of the data integration platforms overall is $20 billion in 2024. And it's projected to be 18, almost $19 billion by 2029, which is CIGR of 9% every year, which is huge. And it can be told from cases like Airbyte, so the most probably one of the most common and popular data integration solutions on the market. We can see a huge rise in the adoption, and many other cases as well. If we talk about regions, of course, it's North America, where like the concentration of tech companies is probably the biggest in the world. And also we can see the trend that Asia Pacific region is growing because of the digital transformation efforts that are there, and digitalization is also pretty active there. Also, there is ongoing trend of moving to the cloud from either hybrid or on-prem environments, which also is conditioned based on the availability of AI solutions or modern data management systems. So people are really looking forward to leveraging all those opportunities. But of course, if you're using outdated infrastructure, or you have everything deployed on-prem and you cannot access all those cloud resources, it's problematic. That is why enterprises who usually have this issue, they are considering, and more than 70% of enterprises by 2025 will eventually move either to cloud or hybrid environments. and hopefully it will allow them to be more efficient in data processing and all their needs. So let's see the trends. So first of all, as we've already discussed, it's the migration to the cloud, which is again something to consider for your application. If you still have something deployed on-prem or using like outdated, I don't know, approaches or frameworks. And of course, if you have the regulation that allows that, because sometimes compliance might enforce you to follow a very, closed setup. Another trend is ELT over ETL, and I will decrypt those abbreviations. So ELT is extract, load, transform, and ETL is extract, transform, load. So what's the difference is in ELT, you first extract the data from the source, then you load that data without applying any transformation into the data warehouse. And then you can leverage all the built-in functionality of the database, for instance, BigQuery or AWS Redshift, to do all the desired transformations. So grouping, filtering, enrichment, etc., etc. And it has benefits over ETL in a sense that for ETL, you need to deploy a separate unit in this pipeline, which is for transformation. So it can be either Apache Spark for distributed processing, or maybe some other like orchestration for workers. So basically some compute that does transformation to the data, and then the transformed data is loaded into the data warehouse. So people do consider costs, consider the efficiency, and with every year, I can see more and more performant databases. I can see upgrades that are made to existing databases that allow them to actually execute all those functions that are required for this data integration purposes. So definitely consider ELT for your pipelines if it follows your requirements and needs. It's also the case that we see more and more no-code or low-code applications that allow you to either write a minimal amount of code or configuration to establish this data integration flow, or you can just do it in the web UI by dragging and dropping some blocks and connect them together to establish this data processing workflow. This is super useful. There are certain things, of course, that you will not control when you want to customize aspects that you would be able to customize only by writing the code. But again, maybe for some use cases, that's pretty enough. And also some tools might allow you to transform this no-code, low-code representation into the code that will be, let's say, dumped into your Git repo, and then you will be able to have the full control over it. So it's also a very interesting option. And of course, we need to always remember that data integration is just one step in this data journey in your system. That is why the final goal should be to establish something that is called MDM, so Master Data Management Solution, that allows you to build all the things that we have discussed so far: the governance, the methodology for storing the data, how to secure the data in transfer or in storage, how to properly communicate with external data sources, how to establish the right policy to interact with the data warehouse, what is the observability methods used, etc., etc. And the last and probably the most important extension of your business is using AI, of course. And if we talk about data integration solutions and what AI can do there, is the simplicity of how you create those connectors and adapters for new data sources, and how you map that into the data warehouse where this data will be stored. And it could be as easy as you take the documentation from your Confluence or maybe from Jira. There are AI assistants that allow to transform those documents, those requirements into the fields and the mapping between fields from the data source to the fields in the data warehouse. And that is how you can get, maybe in a couple of clicks, even the connector in the data integration system that you use, that you can just plug in, and it will ingest the data into the system. Of course, it's also the anomaly detection. There are either existing features in some of the data integration platforms, like Talend, for instance, that allow you to get alerts and view various logs about what kind of uh, interesting patterns are explored from the data. Maybe there is a data drift that is happening, and it might be related either to the incorrect processing or some issues that are on the side of the data source from which you ingest the data. Or maybe it's just some, I don't know, seasonal or just global trend which results in changes in the data. And predictive maintenance, if we talk about building the scalable data integration solution, we are talking about not even terabytes, but maybe petabytes of data. If we talk, of course, about large companies. And for this, you need to keep under control all the important metrics, like infrastructure-related metrics, ingestion metrics, what's the volume of the events, what is the traffic, etc., etc. And you need to be able to react to the events, not even in real time, but you need to understand that there is a risk, let's say, that your system might be overloaded or congested with events in advance, right? And so for this, there are also tools that you can either like build on your own, or you can install various plugins to your data integration system that will allow you to get such alerts and react to such cases in a more rapid fashion. Okay, so let's see the next slide. It's actually the example of AI assistant in Airbyte. It's the feature that was probably introduced last month or 2 months ago, if I remember correctly. It allows you to take the Swagger link, so the link to your API documentation that you want to integrate into your data platform. And this AI assistant will get all the information about the endpoints, about their parameters, all the features that are required to trigger those endpoints, and will transform that into Airbyte connector that can be integrated into your pipeline. And it also can be published on the marketplace. So if you have any specific use case that you understand is not yet covered by community, in Airbyte, they have a prominent marketplace with hundreds and thousands of connectors. You can also make this sort of a contribution to the world by publishing the connector that you think might be relevant to other applications, but not only yours. And in this way, also help other businesses and maybe get some good reputation based on that. Okay, so let's explore popular solutions. So what is the stack that is always used? Of course, we need an ELT platform, like the data integration platform, which can be Airbyte, which is probably one of the best open source alternatives. There is also Fivetran, which is more targeted for enterprises, and it has a subscription-based mechanism. It's also Stitch, a very good platform that we also use internally and for our clients as well to build data pipelines and integrate data from various systems. we need data warehouse, and it could be Snowflake, it could be Google BigQuery, Redshift, it could be Azure SQL, maybe some other data warehouse. So the key is to make the solution as flexible as possible, so you can, change one connector to another, one block to another, depending on your needs, and you do not vendor lock yourself to some specific stack or some specific cloud provider. There are also transformation engines that can be used. So if you feel like it's not enough for you to just do the processing via queries to your data warehouse, you can also integrate dbt, which is a tool that allows you to structure your queries in a more convenient way, in a more manageable way. You can run the jobs related to those queries and basically operate with queries like you would do with your regular ETL jobs. For orchestration, so in order for ELT to function, you need some sort of a scheduler and the workflow manager to run those jobs. And for this, we usually use either Apache Airflow or Prefect. So two very, very popular systems that are very reliable. They are open source, can be configured in any kind of environment, on-prem, in cloud, in orchestrators like Kubernetes, whatever. And monitoring. So if you want to keep your platform observable and get all the alerts and information about its functionality, it's important to integrate tools like Grafana or even APM solutions like Datadog or Sentry, where you can also browse the performance. You can do the profiling. So if you feel like the latency of your data ingestion pipeline is not something that satisfies your constraints or requirements of your stakeholders, you can use those tools to actually drill down to every network request that is done, to every compute operation that is made on the transformation stage, on the ingestion stage into the data warehouse as well, and do the evaluation, conduct sort of audit, what can be optimized. Maybe the tool set that you are using is something that might need to be revised, or maybe there are some inefficient operations that you have in your transformation job, or maybe you ingest more data than you actually need, and you can review the mapping and reduce the number of fields that you actually store in the data warehouse. And of course, AI/ML is the step of this pipeline that connects to the data warehouse. And probably the most common scenario is implementation of AI assistant or some predictive analytics. If we talk about AI assistants, we have a lot of expertise in the company of building RAG-based applications on various sources, not only data warehouses for which we can establish the interactive semantic interface. So for instance, you can ask some questions about your business's metrics or business performance based on the data stored in the data warehouse, and AI assistant will transform those questions into actual queries, and you will be able to communicate with AI assistant like with a human, right? But it will do all the work with transforming that to the actual language of the data storage layer that you have. And it's pretty feasible. It's not a lot of work to be done after you have the well-established process and the data storage mechanism that allows you to connect this AI assistant to. And predictive analytics, of course. So for predictive analytics, we need a data set that you can use for training the regression model. And that also can be achieved by offloading the data from data warehouse and also doing all the transformations to build those features for the model to be trained right in this pipeline as well. So it's all these are all the parts of the same pipeline, but yeah, important consideration here is that you always need to select right tooling for right tasks that we can also help you with. And now let's talk about case studies that we would like to share with you. So the first one is Moda. So Moda is one of the largest analytical platforms for energy market insights and forecasts. It's a well-established business. It was founded in 2019. And it provides powerful insights and energy benchmarks for UK, for the US, and now it's growing in Australia. And to me, it sounds like the greatest example of the company that has the data as a strategic asset, just because Moda actually uses their data to create those insights that power their clients to do their decision making and to do their businesses. So actually, the data is the offering of Moda, and that is why they need to keep it as efficient and reliable as possible, because it's their strategic asset. And their clients include Shell, British Petroleum, UBS, so a lot of powerful enterprise companies among the clients. Next slide, please. And what we have built for Moda is the data integration and aggregation for various sources, including market reports, trading data from energy markets, external APIs, and those sources are both streaming, so we get the data just in real time, ingest that, and provide the interface to get this data for various plots, reports, to train predictive models to forecast prices and stuff like that. But it's also batch data sets where data is taken in regular intervals. The processing is done, the data is ingested, and also exposed to all the relevant parties. Of course, a lot of work is related not only to the backend part, where we have the the data storage, data transfer, the data transformation, and stuff like that. But it's also important to understand what is the use case for the data, what are the visualizations that you really need, and based on that, based on those requirements, you need to understand what kind of limitations you need to fix and eliminate on the data storage side, what kind of features you need to still introduce into your data management system to enable such UX, UI components or some other use cases that you might have. And that's the platform that allows Moda to power all their insights and predictive features. Now let's talk about another client of S-Pro, and that's Earlybird. So it's a VC platform. And the key difficulty that Earlybird got was that they invest a lot of manual efforts and time into finding companies they want to invest into. And it's very important for this task to get as much data as possible from various sources: media, market reports, various social streams, etc., etc. And so the project that we did for them is to create this AI pipeline for monitoring and scanning various data sources where different news or reports can be published about potentially interesting companies. And basically, based on those insights, companies were ranked based on custom criteria, based on the learnable algorithm, that scores those opportunities. So early bird is able to decide which one is more promising for investment. It's also a well-established business. They operate for more than 25 years. They have huge amount of clients and investors. They have AUM around 2 billion euros. And yeah, let's go to the next slide where we see how exactly the processing looks like. So except the scoring of the opportunity, there is also the risk prediction and analytics. So we have custom models and custom pipelines to transform the data from the market, from social media, into certain signal, like what is the risk associated with this potential investment. And all this information allows early bird to do something that we called semi-automated due diligence. So you have a lot of various signals aggregated, transformed into some numbers based on various models. And so the analyst who reviews the report can make a very well-guided decision on whether they should proceed with this opportunity or not. All right, so let's go to the recommendations section. Now I want to recommend you what are like the common steps to build this unified data pipeline for data management, integration, and consumption of the data for various workloads that you have. And what I will tell you now is the part of SPRO template, again, which was created after like many discussions and various projects that we did with various clients. And this template allowed us to build more or less general process that can be extended or adjusted for each specific scenario based on their needs. And so what it allows us to do is to build very cost-efficient and scalable solutions for both small startups that just start this journey, or for enterprise companies who have a lot of data. They have a lot of responsibilities shared among different departments and stuff like that. And it doesn't really matter. The approach still is the same. And it acts like sort of a framework based on which, on top of which you place those building blocks, various connectors, various tools for data management, integration, again, depending on your need. So recommendations are, first of all, always assess the data that you're gonna integrate into your platform. It's both about the structure and volume and variety of the data. What is the amount of columns or features for which you might have inconsistent data or missing values? You also need to treat that separately, and that's what will be included into the software design, right? Or the list of requirements that you will use to find the suitable solution. Always clarify what is the end goal of the data usage. So who are the stakeholders? What are the applications that will connect to this data layer that you are building? Is it the fact that they need data in real time to power some interactive plots? Or maybe there are some AI workloads that will be retrained every hour based on fresh data. And so this leads to completely different, scenario, how it's more cost efficient and more reliable to build such workflows. So always ask the right questions, like what is the source and its nature, and what is the destination as well. Always calculate the cost of ownership. So before even like starting like assembling the team and planning the development, always use cloud calculators, always do calculations by yourself to understand what is the budget that you will need to cover the traffic that goes through the network, what is the budget that you will need for the cloud infrastructure, what is the pricing of the licenses that you will need to pay in case you purchase some tools, what is the cost for development. That's of course a separate story. What are the maintenance costs? What are the training costs associated with training your staff to be able to properly use those tools? And many other things. So always be ready to prepare a report for your business owners to justify what you will be able to solve with the tool and how much you will need to pay for that. Always consider the scalability. Scalability is a must. Always ensure the fact that the amount of data that you can get might grow. And for this, you need to have the architecture which can be easily extended to a scalable scenario, even if it's not scalable by default. Because we all live in the world where the data amount grows exponentially from one day to another, and it's always important to keep that in mind. Use tools that are well supported, well documented, and there is a decent community who can support you in case you have any questions, or you might need some advice how to troubleshoot certain issue or stuff like that. So I think that's pretty understandable, and that's what we also always consider before the start of every project. And of course, the communication and collaboration is always important. Do not consider data transformation journey as just a digital initiative. Always consider it as a way to completely transform your company, both in terms of processes and in terms of the tools and enablers that your employees will have when they will be exposed to this modern infrastructure, reliable pipelines and stuff like that. And you need to properly communicate that to your team so they support you in that, and they will be able to efficiently use those tools to make your business more efficient.
Yes, and I think seeing that it seems a bit overwhelming at the start, right? And that's why it maybe makes sense to get a vendor in, get experts in that have done those challenges like multiple times, because they know how to do it, right? And we believe we know how to do it, and we've proven it with various clients from exactly this data as a product companies, basically, right? Where they basically sell all of this and sell kind of like an aggregated data platform with the relevant tools to access the data, but also with, let's say, corporate clients that might only want to use it more internally, right, and not only sell it as their like key product. Yes, so that is quite complicated, I guess, right? But we are here to help with these endeavors. However, I think we can actually move over to the Q&A session, where we potentially see already the first complicated questions that arise for everybody that sticks with us in this webinar. So even though it makes me very pink, I will keep that slide on, and we will give a little bit of time. So if you have any questions, and I think there have been questions during the webinar, but feel free to just publish your questions. Basically, we will pick some of them, and all of these the other ones we will then publish over social media over the next couple of weeks, a month. So you have a reason to follow us on social media. Yes, I think. Okay, wait. I see this. Okay, so how long does it take to implement such a tool, and how expensive is it? Well, that's maybe you
That's
can
a great
provide some
question.
interest.
Yeah, and the answer, as usually, will be it depends on the project, you know. So and it depends on multiple factors. So I can be more specific about that. So first of all, it's the complexity of data sources. If you have more or less standard CRM or a web shop for which like there are available connectors that you can just use an Airbyte or any other system, well, it can be super fast, right? What is the volume of data? Again, if you need something super scalable, and for this you need to deploy an infrastructure that is able to, scale workers automatically based on the increase in the demand and stuff like that. It's also a separate aspect to consider. What are the business requirements for the data warehouse? So how it will be consumed, how performance should be. So to answer this question, I can probably tell that for small projects, it can likely take from 1 month to probably around 3, just to build the whole pipeline, starting from just you having data sources. And then at the output, you will have a data warehouse, which have an interface that you can connect to via BI tools, analytical workloads, maybe even some basic AI scripts or jobs that you might have in your organization. But of course, it depends on the number of sources, on their complexity, volume of data, again, and stuff like that. Yeah, definitely, if it's the large platform that has, I don't know, dozens of sources from which they want to take the data, even before we take the data and put it into data warehouse, we need to do the consolidation of the schema, right? So we need to understand how to properly merge all those data sets together and remove some data source specific dependencies that we don't need in a data warehouse. So we just keep the data in a way that it's consumable by the end parties, right? The AI, analytics, reporting, and stuff like that. So they do not need to know about the specifics of the data source, of some data source. So we need to, disentangle some things that just needed for the integration, and keep the data warehouse in the format that we need specifically for our use cases.
Yes. Dima, you want to pick the next question, maybe?
Okay, yeah, let's see what we got. Okay, so I like this one. Is data integration relevant in manufacturing or more useful for new businesses? Well, data integration is crucial for manufacturing and for new businesses as well. For manufacturing, we do see a lot of cases related to data integration. First of all, there could be IoT devices, right? There could be, I don't know, various ERP platforms for which you need to both get the data, let's say, from the sales pipeline, for instance, where you might have some requirements. Those requirements are analyzed, transformed into specifications for the manufacturing, and so you need to pass this data into ERP, so then it's executed on the manufacturing level. So there are quite a lot of data sources and destinations that are specific for manufacturing. We've done a lot of research around that. We have clients from manufacturing field as well for whom we build similar workflows. So it's definitely something that manufacturing domain should consider for them as well.
So yeah, even if you don't have the use case yet for you laid out, right? That is what happens with a lot of our clients, where we just like talk to them and actually figure out the use cases with them, right? And then you will find that it's not only relevant to this, let's call them new data companies, right? But it's actually critical for, let's say, well-established companies to also start on this journey in order to be not left behind. Because if everybody else starts it, except for you, right? That is obviously like a strategic disadvantage at some point.
And it's also important, to just understand what's the scope of the data that you can potentially get, because sometimes you might not even be aware that you have the data that can, for instance, unlock you to build the predictive maintenance model, right? But when you do this audit, when you understand like all the sources, all the data structures that you have, then it might be the case that you will consider this to be a part of your data layer. And then it will enable you to build this workflow for data processing, AI reporting, and stuff like that. So it can also act, as a tool for observability to explore new potential for your businesses.
Okay, should we pick one more question?
Yeah, let's do one more, I think.
To be honest, I like this. Okay, do I need to hire a specific job profile for implementing and maintaining such a data management tool? Yeah, I mean, that is the question also addressed more to you, but I guess the underlying question is like, okay, will my IT team now grow even more, right? Because I like use such a platform, or is it actually maintainable for yeah, let's say the typical IT skill set?
Yeah, that's true. Also, a very good question. And there are a couple of roles that are relevant to this direction. First of all, and probably the most important is data engineer, right? So it's the person who first configures and then establishes the pipeline of the data integration, or I don't know, the step which gets the data from data warehouse into your workload. So it's basically the engineering resources that you have for this task. Sometimes it could be a backend developer who has corresponding skills with working with various databases, data warehouses, and I think the skill to learn how to work with data integration platforms is definitely something that can be learned. So there are educational materials, courses that you can use to train your staff. And yeah, definitely there is no constraint that it's just data engineer and that's it. You definitely can try various developers for this role, considering that there is some guidance and mentoring for them, so they can get the most of it. Of course, it's about architecture as well. So it's always important before you do anything to do, again, as we discussed, the audit, the solution design, which includes the selection of proper tools, understanding of the functional and non-functional requirements that is the case for the system that you're gonna build. And that's what can be handled by either a solution architect or data architect, maybe along with business analysts who can also work closely with product stakeholders to understand their needs and to better structure, the whole pipeline to match those requirements. And usually, if we talk about well-established businesses, it's important to have a person responsible for the governance, so data steward, who will be in charge of policies and processes around this data layer. So what are the conventions, what are the formats, the schema that the data should be stored? What are the security measures related to the data storage and transfer? Who are the parties responsible for every step in this data transformation journey? What is the escalation flow? If something goes wrong, what is our policy to react to those incidents? How do we manage them? How do we mitigate the risk for those incidents and stuff like that? And of course, if we talk about analytics and various reporting workloads that can be connected to the data layer, is data analysts, maybe data scientists if you have some predictive workflows as well. So a lot of roles, but of course you need to understand what exactly you're gonna do with all those tools. If you just want to have the data well established and be ready to do something with it later, maybe it's enough for you to have the data engineering team. And then there are like AI experts, data scientists, or data analysts that join you later. But yeah, I think it depends on the actual use case that you have.
Okay. I think that should conclude our session, and I think there will be like still various questions not answered, even though that was hopefully a very comprehensive session with a lot of insights. And any additional questions, as we already said at the beginning, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn to us. Feel free to drop us an email. You will also gain all of the material after this webinar. And yes, we are excited to hear about your use cases, your challenges, right? And potentially helping you with like building such a solution, or actually finding another solution that might be more suitable to your needs.
Yeah, for sure. I can join Dustin in this regard. So we can help you both with understanding the requirements and what you actually need for your project, but also we can suggest you existing tools, or we can suggest you our own tools and templates that we have designed and well tested on various scenarios and for various domains based on our past experience. Or if we consider, based on the conditions and requirements, that it's something very specific and requires a lot of customization, then we also have resources and knowledge how to build the custom solution, maybe with some components being reused. But again, the core can be completely custom, and we have the team for that. We have all the expertise. So yeah, that's basically it.
Yes, so thanks for joining, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of the day. And yes, I guess I hope I see you in our LinkedIn messages or by email. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure to see you. Have a great day.
Bye.